kid, welcome to your Kid Time Story Time, where we have a true life story. Here comes Johnny Appleseed. Appleseeds are all he needs, planting apples on his way out west. Hey, Corny. Wears a pot upon his head, beneath the stars he makes his bed. Folks say Johnny's apples are the best. Hooray! Why, thank you for that amazing musical intro. I love it. All right. Let's read about the true tale of Johnny Appleseed, a real-life American historical figure. Johnny Chapman, that's his real name. Johnny Chapman was born in Leominster, Massachusetts. I think that's how you say it. Leominster, Massachusetts. In 1774. We weren't even officially a country quite yet. When he was a baby, his mother made him a little hammock and hung it on the bough of an apple tree, or bough of an apple tree. He could hear his mother singing as she helped his father harvest their crop of apples. There's Dad, there's Mom, there's the apples they're harvesting. And she would sing, "Rock-a-bye, baby, in the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock." The apple trees. Every spring, the blossoms were like white clouds. Every autumn, as Johnny grew up, he helped his parents pick the ripe fruit, tart and sweet and juicy. My favorite apples are green. In Johnny's mind, an idea grew and grew. What is that idea? When he was 23 years old, he said goodbye to home and family and started westward. Ahead was a wilderness, and Johnny's dream was to plant apple trees there. He carried with him only a stew pot, a hatchet, a flint and steel for making fire, a bag of cornmeal, and a sack of course, apple seeds. A Bible was buttoned under his coat, and there he goes, off into the wilderness, the Wild West, all by himself. Now those who saw him said that he put his stew pot on his head for a hat. He gave away his clothes to anyone who needed a coat or trousers or shoes. So most of the time, look at that, he wore no shoes. One man said that he saw Johnny breaking the ice in a creek with a bare foot. All along his path, he planted apple seeds. If he was invited to spend the night in a cabin, he would not take a bed, but he slept on the floor. He wouldn't eat until he was sure that the children in the family were full. He loved honey, but would never take it from a bee until he saw that the bees had enough honey to keep themselves alive during the winter. A strange man indeed. Why is that strange? Well, you know what, Corny? I don't think that's strange. I think that is very considerate. Yes, it is very giving and unselfish. He doesn't want to take away from anybody. That's right. Shall we go on? Yes. All right. He found fewer and fewer little settlements as he traveled westward, following creeks and rivers by canoe most of the way. See, this truly was the Wild West, and that's why there were even fewer and fewer settlements of people. So it kept getting lonelier and lonelier out there. This was early America. He had to cross the wild Allegheny Mountains on foot, and the furious winter snowstorm caught him by surprise. Oh no! Up to his knees in snow. He wrapped his feet in pieces of cloth torn from his coat. Remember, he gave away his shoes. Then he wove long, thin beech tree branches into, look at that, snowshoes. That is what snowshoes used to look like before modern-day snowshoes. With straps made of bark, he fastened his snowshoes to his feet and loped along over the tops of the deep snow. Now that is called ingenuity. Using what you got. As time went by, Johnny walked so long and so far that his feet grew almost as tough as an animal's paws. I guess so. His feet became like shoe bottoms. In other ways, too, he came to be like an animal. Oh, yeah? Like a unicorn? Well, maybe not exactly a unicorn, because I don't think he met any. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so he would curl up to sleep under a bush or in the hollow of a tree. Once, when he had planned to spend the night in a fallen tree, he found a mother bear already there, asleep with her cubs. Johnny wisely backed out and moved on. "That bear family has more right to the tree than I do," he said. Oh, not only that, if Mama Bear woke up, she would have been fighting mad. You don't want that. So, he would not even hurt a fly if he could help it. One of Johnny's sayings was, each creature is only acting according to its nature. Well, that is a true statement indeed. Some people thought he was crazy. Why? Oh, I don't know. I guess they laughed when they saw him coming with his ragged coat, his bare feet, and his stew pot hat on his head. Oh, I guess I would look pretty crazy if I had a hat on my head. Exactly. But the children loved him. He would bring them simple gifts, a bit of calico to make a doll's dress, or skipping rope. The children would run to him shouting, "Here comes Johnny Appleseed! Johnny Appleseed!" It was the children who gave him his famous name. Look at that. And he comes bearing apples, red apples. Do you like red apples? A lot of people love red apples, but I'm telling you, my favorite of all time is green. As he traveled west, or came back east to tend to his young trees, Johnny brought news to the settlers. I guess since he's traveled so much, he could exchange information back and forth. He was sort of like the modern day internet, if you will. It might be good news or bad news about the Indians. Now, the Indians, or as we call them now, Native Americans, they never harmed Johnny Appleseed. They saw that he was unlike other white men on the frontier. Well, he sure was, wasn't he? He already sounds like a very individual, unique character. He was wise and ready to help anyone in need. The Indians listened to him as he tried to understand and even speak their language. Johnny would give the settlers news from back east and tell about his own adventures and narrow escapes, probably from some of those bears. Then he would pull a book out from under his coat. It might be a Bible or a book of sermons and prayers. He read so well that everyone listened, old and young, whether or not they understood the words. "This is fresh news from heaven," he said. When Johnny Appleseed talked about heaven, his eyes shone. He said that each person had a body while he lived on earth, but in heaven, each one would be a spirit and would never die. When he looked up into an apple tree or up into the stars at night, he could almost see the angels as they praised God because he had made all things good. And look at Johnny right there, sprawled under the night sky. A real nature boy, that one. Often, Johnny would take a book apart and leave sections in cabins along his way, picking them up on his next visit. They were a traveling library in the wilderness. Now, with money from the sale of apple trees, Johnny bought more books as the old ones wore out. He gave trees to people who were too poor to pay, but Johnny himself never seemed to feel poor, even though Johnny was always barefoot and still wearing that very odd hat. Planting, always planting. Slowly he moved from Pennsylvania to Ohio, often paddling along streams that had never been heard of back east. The White Allegheny, Little Broken Straw Creek, the Muskingum, the Maumee, Licking River, and Owl Creek. Now he was in what the maps called Indian land. That was before the states were even drawn in, kid. I mean, this was just this one vast area full of nothing but the tribes of Native Americans. Only a few roads and Indian trails connected the white man's villages. But the settlers were coming. Whole families traveling by. What's that? Oh, yeah. Covered wagons. That was the way everybody seemed to head out west in those covered wagons. Anyway, where was I? They're carrying bags of apple seeds to plant orchards. That was Johnny's idea that was spreading. As he went farther and farther on into the wilderness, he kept ahead of the newcomers. In 5 or 6 years, when they picked a place for a village, Johnny's apple trees were waiting for them and made the wilderness seem more like home. That man single-handedly got apples all over the country, didn't he? In early March 1845, Johnny had gotten as far west as Fort Wayne, Indiana. Ooh, that's cold up there. And he was staying with the family of an old friend when he heard that the cattle had broken into one of his new orchards, 15 miles away. The weather was cold and wet, but he set off at once and never stopped to rest on a long walk. Cloudy, snow showers, an Indiana farmer wrote in his diary that day. The next day, the weather report was snow showers all day. When Johnny got back to his friend's house, they put him to bed with a high fever. Oh no! During the March snows, Johnny Appleseed died, and his body returned to the earth that he loved. By early April, winter was past. The weather report read, "In the night thunder showers, then fair, first apple blossoms." Johnny's work was done. He had made the wilderness bloom. Ever since, clouds of white apple blossoms have filled the Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana river valleys. And in the fall, children growing up where there had been only wilderness have had apples, apple butter for their bread, apple sauce, apple pies, apple cider. All through the winter, they can reach into a barrel and pull out an apple to munch. Oh, the beautiful apples. Johnny's apple trees lived on and on. Orchard after orchard, they spread along the river valleys. Some say that every apple tree you see in the Middle West comes from a Johnny Appleseed tree. Johnny himself was not forgotten.
Oh no, that's why we learn about him in school.
Exactly. The children to whom he had told stories about his adventures passed the stories on to their own children. And the Indians, the Native Americans, they remembered him too. They said, "He was our medicine man." And farm folks will tell you that when the apple trees make a cloud of white in the springtime, you may still catch a glimpse of something or someone moving among the branches at the far end of your orchard. It may be the spirit of Johnny Appleseed come down from heaven to tend to his beloved trees.
Wow, I'm kind of sad though.
Why? Why, Corny?
Because he died trying to take care of his apple trees.
He did. That was the big priority in his life, to take care of these trees and make sure they were there for generations to come. And look at that. Never forgotten.
No. What else does it say, storyteller?
Well, let's see. There's some notes here about Johnny Appleseed in history. It says that when America won its Revolutionary War against Great Britain, the new country, the U.S., that's us, began to grow fast, and it was a big country. And President George Washington was offering land in the West at only a few dollars an acre.
That's really cheap, right?
It was cheap, and that was to encourage Americans to go west and spread across the country. Now, this land was in western Ohio, where there were few settlers, and the maps, as our books said, was just the map said Indian land. That's all that it would say. So everybody thought that life in the West would be hard, but many young men wanted to try it, thinking that they could get rich. Others were in trouble with the law and hoped to disappear into the wilderness, and some just liked the adventure and being on the move. Now, it said that in 1812 a war broke out between Great Britain and its old colonies in America, and the British were joined by the Indians of Ohio, who saw that the settlers were encroaching on their territory. By sudden raid and ambush, by burning cabins and attacking many settlers, they tried to drive the invaders back away to the Ohio River. But the settlers kept on coming west. Now, Johnny was different from some of the other people who were heading west. He was friendly to people of all sorts. He was an educated man and a great reader and a natural gentleman.
Yes, it sounds like it. He was very thoughtful.
He was very thoughtful, and he loved the outdoor life, and he loved the frontier, and that how it called to him. So he was a very important figure in American history as America was spreading. And it says here that during Johnny's lifetime, few people had ever actually heard of Johnny Chapman, but in time to come, his country knew him well by his other name, Johnny Appleseed.
The name that the kids gave him.
Exactly. And said, yes, he too made
American history.
And that is your True Life KidTime Storytime about an important American figure. So next time you have apples,
Or applesauce.
or apple juice,
Or apple pie.
you can think of
Johnny Appleseed.
See you next time, kid, on Hit It, Corny.
KidTime Storytime. Apple pie. I think I'm gonna go have some.